Hello, and welcome to The Budget Mouse, a podcast that will help you plan an incredible Walt Disney World vacation, even if you're on a shoestring budget. I'm Leah Althizer, and I've been helping people save money at Disney World for the past 10 years through my websites, podcasts, and courses. I'm so glad you're here, and let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 97 of the Budget Mouse podcast. Earlier in 2024, Disney teased that it was going to make changes to the current line skipping app situation, which is Genie Plus. And last week, they announced the changes that they were going to be making. So in this episode, I'm going to summarize the changes, give you all of the nitty-gritty details that we know so far, and my hot take on this change. Now, I waited a few days after the announcement for more details to get fleshed out, and I'm glad I did because more became obvious about it since the initial announcement. This is what we know at this point. Genie Plus is being replaced by the Lightning Lane MultiPass, which will allow you to make 3 Lightning Lane selections per day in advance. The individual Lightning Lane is renamed Lightning Lane Single Pass and can also be made in advance. So I'm in the process of massively updating all of my posts on the blog, but I wanted to give you my opinion and kind of break down how it's going to work. There's good news and there's bad news about this. Overall, my impression is that this is good. This is a good development. The main reason being that no longer will you have to set an alarm for 6:55 a.m. every day on vacation to make your first Lightning Lane selection like you had to do with Genie Plus. That was people's main complaint with the system, other than the fact they had to pay money for it. And I hate to tell you that's not going anywhere. But they didn't like waking up every day to make the plans on vacation. So there's good news and bad news about this. If you're staying at a Disney-owned resort, in addition to the resorts that are owned and operated by Disney, also includes the Swan and Dolphin and Shades of Green, then you will be able to make your Lightning Lane selections 7 days in advance of your check-in day for the entirety of your resort reservation, up to 14 days. Now, I don't know who these people are that are staying 14 nights at the same resort at Disney World, but hats off to them. You're getting special privileges to make these reservations 7 days in advance, only if you're staying at a Disney resort or Swan and Dolphin and Shades of Green. If you are staying off property at any other resort, you can't make selections until 3 days in advance of your first day of your park ticket. And then you can make it for as many days as you have on your park ticket. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. I think this is the most, maybe the most contentious part of it. I know there's another thing that's kind of contentious about it, which I'll mention in a second. It will be interesting to see if, what of the most sought after Lightning Lane selections will be left at that 3-day mark. Or if the Disney resort goers are going to scoop up, for example, all of the Slinky Dog Dash Lightning Lane reservations. Who knows? We will just have to wait and see how that plays out. I think there will be anger for people who aren't staying on property if that ends up being the case, where their only option then is to wait in the standby line. Also, a huge positive of the new program is that you will be able to pick the times of your Lightning Lane selections. Hooray! So with Genie Plus, you were relegated to whatever the next time was that was available in Genie Plus. But now you can plan your day a lot more by saying, okay, I want to come back to the park in the evening and ride Slinky Dog Dash then. And you can handpick the times that you want for these different attractions. Now, this is similar to Fastpass Plus of years ago, where you could pick your times in advance. And I think people were wanting that as well for more certainty of what your day was going to look like ahead of time, which people like at Walt Disney World. Now at Disneyland, they're more spontaneous. They don't need to know so far in advance what their day is going to look like. But at Disney World, people plan their trips, years in advance sometimes, and they do want a sense of where they're going to be when on that day. Now, this is the other contentious point here, is that it can only be used in the United States and Canada. But that was backtracked. At first, it was only the United States. And now Disney's come and said, oh, actually in Canada too. So this means if you live outside of the US and Canada, you will only be able to make your Lightning Lane selections once you're physically here in the United States. So this may change how people vacation. I don't know how much of an advantage it will be, but people traveling here from overseas will not be able to make any Lightning Lane reservations till they're here. That may lead to people, if they're visiting Universal as well, being sure they go to Universal first, because then when they're there, they can make their Lightning Lane reservations and have the advantage of the advanced window. So even if they're staying at a Disney resort, they can't make them until they're physically here. I think there's going to be a bunch of pushback on this, and we'll see if this gets changed eventually.
Hey, it's Leah, and I'm interrupting this episode for a minute to tell you about the Budget Mouse Academy, my signature course that will teach you how to save thousands at Disney World. I created it because I hate that most people are majorly overpaying for their Disney vacation, and I'm on a mission to help them save their hard-earned money. I've distilled my best tips from almost 15 years of doing Disney on a shoestring budget into this course, and now you can get it for only $37 if you head to thebudgetmouse.com/course. That's thebudgetmouse.com/course. Now back to the show.
Okay, so moving on from kind of the basics of how it works. Oh, I forgot to say, when can you make it? 7 a.m. Okay, so you still have to wake up at 7 a.m., but it won't be every day of your trip waking up at 7 a.m. It will be either 7 a.m. 7 days before you check in if you're staying at a Disney resort, or 7 a.m. 3 days before the first day on your park ticket. Then you can make it for as many days as you have on your park ticket. Oh, also, people want to know, can you make reservations, Lightning Lane reservations at different parks? No. You are able to make 3, and we'll talk about this next, which attractions you can make them for. You cannot make them at additional parks. However, once you get into the park and use your first Lightning Lane reservation, you can start making them for other parks. So park hopping is still an option, but you can't make them in advance at multiple parks. I think that might also change in the future. Okay, anyway, what attractions are included? Similar to Genie Plus are many of the attractions. However, a glaring absence are character meet and greets are not on there at all. Now, will they be added later? I suspect so. I can't believe that they're going to exclude all character meet and greets from this line skipping app. And that is a big draw for many people. Some of the character meet and greets were very popular with Fastpass and with Genie Plus. So we will see if they add that back in later. But currently, there's no character meet and greets, and there's no parade viewing that you can reserve ahead of time with the multi-pass or the individual Lightning Lane pass, the single pass. So there's bad news. The tier system has returned. So this was an element of the Fastpass Plus system, which was always massively confusing for people. It goes like this. You can only make one advanced Lightning Lane selection from a group of the most popular attractions, which we're calling Tier 1. And then your other 2 advanced Lightning Lane selections can be from the rest. And in theory, you could make all 3 from that rest, but you're limited to 1 from Tier 1 and then the others in advance from the rest of the attractions. All of the parks will have this Tier 1 and Tier 2, except for Animal Kingdom, which won't have tiers at all. So I'm sure you're wondering, what are the Tier 1 attractions? And I will say there are more than I thought there would be. So at Magic Kingdom, you have to only pick 1 from Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Jungle Cruise, Peter Pan's Flight, Space Mountain, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I thought there would be 2 or 3, as there were in the past with Fastpass tiers, but no, there are 5. So I think that will spread out the choices quite a bit, leaving more availability for people who are coming in and booking their first one at the 3-day window, especially at Magic Kingdom, because people are going to be distributed somewhat evenly, I think, among those attractions. There's not one that stands out to me as the one that everyone is going to want. It depends on your interests of your party, which one you personally like more. I mean, for me personally, out of that list, I would pick right now Tiana's Bayou Adventure because it's the hot ticket item, right? So that will be the one that will go at first. But as Tiana's gets more broken in and people get used to it, I would say Peter Pan's Flight's probably going to jump back up, or Jungle Cruise, which is just, I don't know why. People can't get enough of it, especially during the holidays when they do seasonal overlay. People love the Jingle Cruise. So that one will go first, I'm sure, during the Christmas time. Okay, to Epcot, the 3 that are in Tier 1 are Frozen Ever After, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, and Soarin'. I'm kind of surprised to see Soarin' in there because oftentimes you don't really even need a fast pass for Soarin', and you can just walk on with a very little wait. But I did expect to see Frozen. I also expect to see Test Track on there. Test Track's not on the list at all right now because it's closed for refurbishment. So where Test Track will land when it comes back, I expect it will be in Tier 1. So watch for that. At Hollywood Studios, there are 4 attractions in Tier 1, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Slinky Dog Dash. Now, out of those, I think Slinky Dog is going to be far and away the one that people go to first. And that is going to probably be the hardest Lightning Lane multi-pass attraction to get a pass for. Maybe Tiana's at first, but then I think it will then become Slinky Dog Dash. Okay. So good news is that once you check in for your first Lightning Lane selection in the park, as soon as you tap your Magic Band or card or ticket media to the Mickey there and check in, then you can make another Lightning Lane selection from any tier. So you can go to another Tier 1, which I expect most people will do. The most in-demand attractions, they'll want to grab another one. So this will allow for stacking multiple Lightning Lane selections for later in the day when waits are typically longer, which is a great way to avoid long waits for attractions in the afternoon hours, is to have some of those fast passes essentially stacked up and waiting for you. Now, another big change is that this 120-minute rule is gone. It was horribly confusing to people, this principle that you could make another selection after 120 minutes has passed. It's gone. I'm so glad it's gone. It was so confusing to people. So the new rule is that you can only ever hold 3 Lightning Lane selections at any given time. So anytime you use one, you can go in and get another if it's available. It's more simple. They did one thing simple. They certainly didn't keep the names simple. They're a mess, but they kept this principle simple, is that at any given time, you can always have 3. More bad news. It's still going to be a paid service. I mean, once Disney realizes they can charge you for something and people will happily pay, they're going to keep charging. They're not going to go back to making it free. So we don't know the cost yet. But I expect that it will be similar to the current Genie Plus prices, which range per day and per park, depending on demand, from $15 up through $35. Animal Kingdom's always going to be the cheapest. Magic Kingdom's always going to be the most expensive. Will it be more, though? That is what I don't know. Will they think this is a great opportunity to tout it as something new and improved and therefore charge you more for it? We will find out soon as it gets rolled out. But I think they're going to initially stay kind of at the same prices as Genie Plus. Really, you're getting fewer attractions because there's no character meet and greets. And overall, I think it will be less valuable. So who knows? Maybe they'll even charge less. Yeah, fat chance that's not happening.
Hey, if you're still there and you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts? It will help more people find the show and spread the word about the Budget Mouse. Thanks again for listening.
So the overall bad news of this thing is that it really doesn't allow for any spontaneity in your day. And that was the one good thing about Genie Plus, is that because no one could make selections in advance of that day, everyone was on a level playing field for that day. So that is no longer the case. So if you wait until the day of your visit to try and decide if the crowds merit buying the multi-pass, most of the best selections will be long gone. People will have made them 7 days or 3 days in advance. So that is a drawback to it. And that was the case with Fastpass Plus, but we just adapted because we're used to planning our vacations so far in advance at Disney World, right? And last, good news, you will be able to purchase your multi-pass and single pass in one transaction. So at 7 a.m. when you go on to the app and you make your first selections for the trip, then you'll be able to make all of your purchases in one transaction. So that was a lot of like your credit card kept getting hit every day for the Genie Plus, and then separately for the individual Lightning Lanes got hit again. And so this will be more of a seamless transaction. Now, this is going to take some strategizing at first, especially while we're getting used to it, for people that are there for a longer period of time, because they'll be able to make all of their reservations at once for the whole trip. So when they get on at 7 a.m., they are going to have to act quickly, right? And have a plan for making this first and then this and then this, and kind of really have a strategy in place. What's nice about it is that if you're staying for a longer period of time, towards the end of your trip, availability should be wide open and there should be no trouble getting anything you want for later in your trip. It's the earlier in your trip where there's going to be more competition because there's going to be more people booking for that particular day. Overall, I think it's an improvement over Genie Plus, with the exception of the stupid names. Why they couldn't go back to Fastpass or do something simpler. I mean, Lightning Lane multi-pass attractions is the worst. It's so long. And what a mouthful. And then Lightning Lane single pass. Like, I just don't know why they couldn't keep it simple. But Disney isn't listening to me. They're not listening to any of us. They're just, someone's making these decisions in an office somewhere and saying, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So we will see how this plays out. I am going to go test it out the very first week that it's available and battle the heat of Disney August 1st and see how this all plays out. But I hope that helped you wrap your mind around how it's going to work. And thanks for listening.